Welcome to the next EHO Knows podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be changing tact a bit. We're not going to be looking at some horror story or some major event and how an environmental health officer dealt with it. But instead, I'm going to be trying to tackle the bigger question of how do you promote environmental health? How do you promote the concept of a career as an environmental health officer? And I've got the great opportunity to be interviewing someone this time who is relatively fresh into the career, is just bursting with enthusiasm and insights, but also has just picked up an award, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And so this is a great opportunity just to be asking, why should people be becoming an environmental health officer? How do you promote it to teenagers, to school children? How do you promote it to people who are looking at a career change? But as a twist, how do you promote environmental health to the rest of council, to upper management, to people outside the general public? And so rather than just seeing it as a burden or as an obscure thing, actually, why is being an environmental health officer such a magical job? So thank you very much, Ariana Johnson. Welcome to EHO Knows.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you're hidden away in the Shoalhaven. Tell us a little bit about the Shoalhaven.
Yeah, well, I'm streaming to you now from a little suburb called Watersley, but the Shoalhaven is a huge LGA. I think we have about 100 beaches along the south coast, about 2 hours south of Sydney, hour south of Wollongong. We go all the way from, kind of the Berry and far corners, east and west, all the way down past Ulladulla. Developing city, I think we're probably creeping towards Wollongong size and business-wise, so it's definitely a developing area, but it's, great place, coast, mountains, everything you want in between.
I like the way you just lead with, we've got 100 beaches, like just putting it out there, guys, we've got 100 beaches.
Yeah, it's people are envious of it because half of our job is driving to the coast, driving past the seaside, so it's beautiful. Yeah.
Which then also just means that what's the ratio of locals to tourists? We've got Christmas coming up. What's it going to be like?
It's mad. It's mad down here. Huge tourist population, and I think that expands to a lot of issues and management of issues that we can potentially have as well. If you're having increased numbers, increased service, increased contact with recreational waters, it's we get a high risk in tourist seasons as opposed to our quiet times. Yeah, great place.
Yeah, just to stress how busy you are, you're now working 1,000 hours a week.
Yes.
And so you've now been an environmental health officer for how long?
I think I'm coming into the 4th year. So it was mid-2021. We had fire, flood, pandemic, more flood. I had 1 week in the office. I kind of got the tour of the building and then handed a laptop and sent home to work from home for the next 3 or so months. So, 3.5, 4 years now.
Yes, one pandemic, dozens of floods, couple bushfires, so business as usual.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're currently officially Cadet Environmental Health Officer.
Yes.
And last week you picked up a prize at the EHA conference, and the award was
Student of the Year. Yeah, great honour. It was really surprising to me. I guess the cadetship means that I study part-time, so where you would normally do the 3-year degree with 4 subjects a semester, I study part-time, so 2 subjects. It spans it out over 6 years, but I had the vice president of EHA actually nominate me for that, for some work in the special interest groups we do, and it was a really nice surprise. And I think my supervisor and team leads and everything had to secret squirrel information through to them at the time of what I was working on. And it really kept it a surprise until I got there.
Yes. So there you go. So that's, we've just wheeled out the professor. We've just listed all their credentials. So you are a cadet, young in your career, but at the same time, you're doing amazing stuff straight away. So the big question, why did you become an environmental health officer?
Yeah, I definitely, I graduated HSC high school not intending to go straight into uni. I was looking at an electrical apprenticeship. I was working in the audio visual production kind of things on some high-end opera productions in Sydney, doing all sorts of stuff. I think I wanted to be a dietitian at the time, but then this job advert came up and my mum said, you're crazy. Why don't you look at this job? It sounds so much like you. It's working with the community. It's working in the environment. It's working in sciences and applied sciences. So yeah, I interviewed. I was going for an electrical apprenticeship at the time. And when I walked out of that interview, I called the electrical company at the time and just said, thank you very much for the opportunity, but I'm turning it down. And,
So,
2 weeks
yeah,
later, I call back about this job. So it all worked out well.
yeah. Okay, so the alternative was working in audiovisual, theatre, electrical, and so I'm an electronic engineer.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is that you had the opportunity to work in a glamour industry, potentially, behind the scenes, lots of famous people, lots of fun stuff, or you had the opportunity to
Come to
become an
local
environmental
council.
health officer. Okay,
Yeah.
but it resonated more with you. So what really resonated?
Both industries have a lot of problem solving and thinking on your feet and high pressure because you're trying to make decisions that impact more than yourself. But I really thrived under that environment, and it was working in a team of people here. I don't know, it's you're outdoors. Here I'm outdoors working with the community, taking water samples, working outside. It's not chained to your desk, but then you are still working under legislation and under policy. So one was a bit more glamorous, but it was set indoors in the darkness, which I loved at the time. But this to me was so much broader, and I love them both dearly. But this made a lot of sense to me.
And for your peers, for others in the course at the moment, what's the sort of reasons why people are signing up?
Yeah, I think if I had to speak on behalf of my colleagues, a lot of them liked being able to work in their communities, improve their communities, or just the love of being able to be a scientist working in the field. How many scientists get to do that? You're in a lab, you're in a white coat. We're going into kitchens or tattoo studios or the beach or the lake or the dam, and we're going up there and looking at that too. So I still get to do my behind the scenes if you don't see me, things are going well side of work, but I'm doing it in a broader community group year on year, kind of spreading that impact out the bigger things.
And so did the job live up to its expectations?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had that gut feeling in the interview. 3.5, 4 years in, I'm stoked to be here. I've got an incredible team that I work with. And I do wake up each day. It's a different day. I'm doing different work every day. It's not a learning curve that's on an angle or anything. It's a complete straight line up. Everything I'm doing each day is entirely different, but it's building that rationale, that problem solving. So yeah, absolutely. It's exactly where I need to be.
Okay, two questions.
Mm.
One, what if you had known at the start would have been hey, why am I doing this job?
Yep.
And then the second one's going to be, what didn't they tell you in the interview that they should have said that would have made it a slam dunk? So let's start with the first one. What's the stuff they kept secret in the interview where you're going, oh, mate, if they've been truthful about this, why would anyone take this job?
Um, I mean, I can go to the obvious. We also work in septic tanks and on-site sewage waste. We have authorized ears, eyes, and nose. So if you put in a complaint as a community member that something smells funny or sounds annoying or a nuisance or is a visual impact, I have to go and look at it and make an assessment through my science degree. We put those skills and guidelines together and go, oh, here's the final word on this at this stage. We can be asked to look at some pretty rank things. I've looked at dead animals that are impacting waterways or have left a property. So there's some pretty gross things. But you go back to why are you doing it, and it's to consider the environmental risk, and you can actually make a difference to improve that outcome. So that's double-edged sword. But yeah, I didn't exactly know that at the time.
I was just going to say, so in the job interview, they should just say, hey, can you smell these things?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
just go, yeah, so that's Monday, that's Tuesday, that's Wednesday, that's Thursday, that's Friday. That's what your week's going to smell like. And then you
Yes.
go, okay, septic tanks Monday, a little bit of toxic waste Tuesday.
But in the same regard, we'll go into bakeries and we'll smell bakeries and there's sugar and spice and everything nice. So there's the two parts to it.
Okay, so that's what they didn't tell you. What is the stuff that now that you're in the job, you're going, hey, this is the stuff that makes such a big difference that we should be telling people coming through, or what's the hidden magic?
It's tricky because I think some people would say different things. I think for me, it would be because we're authorised under legislation and we've been handed those delegations from the CEO of the council, we have this level of autonomy or decision making where you as the authorised officer have that capacity to make a decision. And it's from everything to how you manage your investigation, how you work with people, as long as you're driving towards the right outcome. So there's a bit of strategicness and problem solving and investigation and you know, Detective Holmes kind of energy to it that the more you can work in that space and drive your outcomes, you can really get better outcomes for people. I know that's a long way of saying it, but if you're interested in investigation and being able to make a decision and being able to really fight for better outcomes and best practice, that's up to you. You know, some areas and some other departments and other LGAs as well, you'll get people that just do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and you can just follow the instructions. But you really, in this industry, get a lot of ability to make decisions and find the more strategic and better outcome through that. So that's the magic to me.
Fantastic. So at the conference last week, we were just chatting and discussing how you've got all these people who are saying, hey, I'm really keen about looking after the environment. And, they're on Facebook saying, hey, we should look after the environment. And they're tweeting to each other or whatever it is nowadays saying, hey, we should look after the environment. But all those decisions that you're talking about, all the responsibility you have is about looking after the environment. So, what are your thoughts on that in terms of the messaging that we're giving to, what's environmental health all about?
Yeah, so I think it's important we look after the environment and public health. We're front facing to the community, so a lot of the time we'll be the first ones to hear about a problem, or we'll understand the area around it and the dynamics in that situation a lot more than a state agency could. So my dad, when I first started, wrote me a quote while he was at work, and it says, "The purpose of council is to provide stewardship of the community and its environment for all people year on year." When I look at the climate and I climate, world politics, the situations we find ourselves in, it's quite a daunting place to be. If you care about the environment, you care about people around you, you're sitting here seeing all these things going on and all these big issues, and it can be really isolating, and it shuts you down, and you just go, what's the point? Turn the news off. I think in our space, I'm not a morning person, but I can spring out of bed for my job. I'm coming in, I'm working on my own backyard. You can change something wherever you're located. Your decisions can drive better outcomes for these people. You're involved, you're improving things, you have that ability to do so. I think if you're talking to high school students, they've got the school strike for climate, they've got Greta Thunberg, they've got all these voices coming out of the woodworks. They know about things, they're connected to the internet. And they go to careers days, or they're in their HSC going, well, what am I going to do? Or I want to go and do, this or that, or I have no idea what I want to do. If you're feeling the pressures of what's going on in the world and you want to try and change that, like, take the empowerment by it. I was in Perth for the World Congress of Environmental Health. I was meeting people from all sorts of countries with all sorts of issues, all with a focus of improving public and environmental health. So that's only in my 3.5 years at it. Imagine what you can do in your career if you come to this space. You can go anywhere, and you can really make a difference. So yeah, I just think it's really empowering to be in that position and have that opportunity.
So in your 4 years so far, is there something that just comes to mind as to, wow, I've made a difference?
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud of food businesses that you inspect. So we'll go and look at kitchens, and you'll find a couple of issues that are stacking up, and it's getting on the verge of the Swiss cheese effect, where it's just going to take a few too many things to line up and a foodborne illness or an outbreak to occur. And you can, through education and empowerment, rather than just straight regulatory tools, you can really turn things around for people. And so when I've come back, whether it be 3 weeks or 6 months later, and I see that they're continuing to improve and they're still on that upward swing, and they're proud of what they're doing, that has to be a highlight. Sometimes it can be helping resolve an issue with a neighbor, and you're trying to work out between two parties what the best outcome is for everyone so we can keep living together, right? So it has to be when you see something that's, if you weren't there, maybe that wouldn't have been the same outcome.
So where do you hope to go?
Good question. I have a year and a half left of my studies. Could go anywhere. I've just completed a contaminated land unit as well as a disaster management unit at Western Sydney Uni. Two incredible fields I would never have picked that I'd be interested in. Contaminated land is everything from your asbestos to, gas underground, anything that has the potential to be an adverse effect to people living near or in proximity to it. So looking at remediation in that space is really interesting. And the planning and the science and the field work's really cool. Disaster management, you can get based at home, working in home fires, floods, even pandemic response to a degree, the avian flu issues, issues with poultry, algal blooms, all that kind of stuff, and lead to a disaster response and the local emergency management committees and councils. You can be deployed overseas, either with the Australian Defence Force or with your local government placement. You can be still deployed over to other countries to help manage their sanitation and hygiene. So that's another cool place of on the ground making a difference. Your decisions really having the ability to make change and improve things. So I really have no idea where I'll go. Definitely for a holiday. I think 5+ years of studying has been a lot. But yeah, somewhere in this space.
Trying to recruit school kids, who is the job ideal for, and who should we just be going, look, this job's not suitable for you? What are the types of qualities that we should be looking for in the next generation of people coming through?
Yeah, okay. I have to say safety's first. You've got to be risk adverse. If you're stepping out into traffic and not looking left and right, this might not be for you. You're working by yourself a lot of the time in field, so you have to have your wits about you and have some common sense. I'd like to think that you're a collaborative person. Councils can have a lot of silos by nature where each department works in their own space, but there's so much benefit when you can work with other teams. They're specialists in their own right and they understand their assets or their area. So collaborative. And I think you've got to be an open-minded person. You're often working with people from diverse backgrounds and understandings and economic situations, all of those good things. So if you're trying to drive outcomes, you've got to understand that other people have different levels of safety and different levels of what's acceptable. So if you're a person that doesn't want to sit still and see the world fall to crumbles, you have the option to get involved. You have the option to make a difference. And if you can come through in a cadetship, I can't praise cadetships enough. Financially, they're supportive, but also I'm learning from well-seasoned officers. I'm working with a team of people. I'm learning from them and applying these skills while studying them. So it's you eat, sleep, and breathe this space, and you can really, I keep saying it, but make a difference.
Let's go back to the moment where your mother said, hey, go for this and let's go for the job. You're an arty-farty person who likes to dabble in electronics. What was going through your mind? Like, why the shift?
Yeah, productions. So we had an entertainment building, the Wollongong High School of Performing Arts Entertainment Building, if I can give that a plug. And so I loved that. That was behind the scenes work. Um, and I ended up working for some DJs. I went and backpacked, came back thinking I will go to uni and do dietetics because I was really interested in nutrition and health. Did a placement in a hospital, realized that hospitals were a really grim place to be. Thought, oh, I better go back to electronics. I understand that. Um, but yeah, I've always been an environmentally minded person. I've always been frustrated at people that can't recycle. I've always wanted, I think I wrote to Prime Minister when I was in kindergarten trying to protect some trees and some koalas and relocate some birds. There's a letter there somewhere signed back. John Howard, I think it was at the time. So it aligned with a lot of my core values. So I didn't think that this space or this industry existed. I didn't think I could find a career or a space where I could apply my problem solving technical knowledge because we work with scientific equipment and SONs and if you look at the Internet of Things and all that really juicy electronics and digitalization or automation of things. I didn't think there was such a thing as an environmental health officer. I didn't know about it. We didn't have it at our careers expo. It wasn't an option. So I think when I read the job description, I just went, I can do all these things that I like, but I can do them here and drive better things for people. So it's that nurturing, caring, yeah, the love of all good things in an industry I didn't know existed.
So did you get an answer from your letter?
So I should clarify there were two letters. I think it was the environmental minister at the time, 2005, 2006. I think the first letter I got back was really supportive, hand signed by the Prime Minister, stoked. The second letter I got when I was in year one was fridge magnets and stickers and a message of just keep doing your thing. I'm so glad there are young people interested in the environment. And I was furious. I was so angry as a year one kid that this, politician thought they could silence me with some stickers. I was, fuming. But I didn't think I'd end up here. So doing that kid proud, I guess.
So at one end of the spectrum, you've got the politicians making policies, and let's just pretend they're making good policies.
Yes.
At the other end of the spectrum, you've got a 6-year-old who's saying, hey, we should be putting this in the bin and just trying to make a little bit of a chipping away at things. But squarely in between, you've got the person who's going, hey, we've got the policies coming out from the politicians and we can actually be shaping the lives of everyday Australians. But really what you're doing is a 6-year-old putting a bottle in the recycling and then actually being able to scale up. So taking your letter and putting it on steroids and actually putting it in place.
Yeah, I've never joined those dots together before, so you've given me a bit of an epiphany. But yeah, wherever you come into science and environment or public health, the study of the human anatomy and things like that, you've got to appreciate that everything you do as a professional person is absolutely scaled up and will continue to be scaled up if you want it to be. We have a lot of advocacy groups where we are writing letters to the ministers and commenting on legislation or regulation updates and things and saying, well, hang on, your words are nice on paper, but we're actually applying it and enforcing it in some degree. So these things don't line up or this doesn't work or we're trying to use these as tools. We are influencing policy. We're not writing it. I don't envy the job of the person who has to write it, but we're improving it.
Okay. You've got 15 seconds. List all the things that you do in your job, all the things that you've done over the last 4 years.
Drinking water, recreational water, on-site waste disposal, tree applications, biodiversity assessment, contamination and contaminated land, DA referrals, acoustic reports, sediment and erosion control plans for building to protect sediment from going into waterways, public health, so skin penetration, anything tattooing, waxing, that public health hygiene regulation. What else do? We do caravan park inspections. We do commercial swimming pool inspections. So your swim schools and your hotels, motels. and your public pools. We do beach and estuary water quality monitoring, so we can be taking the boats out and be doing sampling in that sense, or looking at algal, or looking at like microbiological samples, reading lab reports, taking the pH of rice or an egg mix. Everything. We have such a broad coverage that if our services and kind of assessment,
So we do absolutely everything. Yeah.
we have our wings broadly spread across a lot of different fields. So we really look at anywhere where people and the environment can impact each other and try to find a better way of managing things. So it's broad, and no days are the same, and it's just madness. It's crazy how much we can do and how much can go wrong if we're not here as well. You mentioned earlier that what's the pitch to councils for keeping us and seeing us as an important asset? Well, you know, if we're not there and your food inspections start to drop, or your food quality or hygiene in restaurants drop, then you're going to have more foodborne illnesses, then you're going to have more hospital presentations and potential mortality. So there's more pressure on your hospital systems. If you want to go for a swim at the beach, or if you want to go fishing at your local watering hole, those things won't be there if we're not. So you'll see holes across your LGA if you don't have a well-supported environmental health team.
You do a lot, and you do a lot day in, day out, where you're changing hats just absolutely continually. And then what's really funny is, like you said, you've been in the job for years, and yet you have to be a jack of all trades. And in previous episodes of EHO Knows, little plug, go back, watch. We talk about, being thrown in the deep end in floods, or having mass food poisoning outbreaks or whatever. And that's all just part of the job. So you've got these are all the things you do. You're at a party, someone says, what do you do?
Depending on how much time I have, either a health inspector and then some, or anything where people and environment cross over, we're there. We have an impact on anything there.
Okay, you've got a couple beers in. Okay, and
you're less official about it.
And going, what? Oh, you're a bloody food inspector. 4 beers in.
4 beers in, yeah, mate, and you'd be terrified of what I've seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I don't know if I have a 4 beers deep answer to that. I think it's, you're at a party and someone says, what do you do for a job? I tell them I'm an environmental scientist, and I say that I work with communities and mitigate risk, whether it's public or environmentally. So I do a lot of things in your area. I really do just give them a pretty honest answer as to, we're using legislation to regulate risk.
So what are your thoughts about, the science behind the job, but the passion behind the job?
Yeah, it's an applied science. So we do a science degree majoring in environmental health, but I've also ultimately got a person in front of me with a problem. And it could be that they want to tattoo someone and they understand how to tattoo, but they may not appreciate that there's a long piece of legislation that's written to guide what they're doing. So we come in and say, okay, show me what you're doing, show me what your practice is. And we try to find opportunities where things can go wrong. So we're looking at a Swiss cheese effect where, on a normal day basis, when you're looking at an inspection, people do their job right. They've been doing it for however long, they know what they're doing, but there could be a few areas where contamination or some kind of cross interference can occur. And we call it a Swiss cheese effect because it's all the holes line up and you get a skin infection or a foodborne illness or, some kind of environmentally disastrous thing occur because everything fell off all at this one point. So we are looking at what you're doing and saying this is where the holes can line up, and we try to reduce them and reduce the impact or the risk to people. So we're trying to make sure that you do your job to the best of your abilities. We're saying, hey, you want to give someone the best tattoo, or you want to give them the best cafe meal, and the activities you're doing to get to that point can have impacts on people. So we're coming in to try and bolster you and help you get the better outcome and continue to operate. We do food inspections of school canteens. When I first started, that was one of my jobs. And I'd come in, we have a group of brilliant PNC volunteers, and they say, "What are you here for? I've made food for little Timmy for the last however long, and he's never gotten sick." And I go, "Okay, well, you're not just looking after little Timmy, you're looking after, potentially 300 students who have different levels of immune systems and tolerance and allergens. So what you're now doing is providing that service to a broader population." You talk about the tourist town that we live in. We have a pretty standard population, and then it comes to Christmas time or the holidays in summer, and all of what we've been doing gets ramped up, and so the risks increase, and the risks of managing the potential for a foodborne illness to occur. So yeah, we're trying to work with people to help them keep operating, to keep a good reputation, to not have a salmonella bomb. If I refer back to your first episode, like it's to look after people. Um, the regulation comes in when you can't get on board for whatever reason, or you choose not to, or it's a significant enough impact. I think there's a big difference between doing something intentionally wrong and making a mistake or needing to further educational guidance. So there's a lot of that involved.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a couple totally left field job questions. So, how many days do you have where you go home just pumping the air, going, "Yes, this has been an awesome day"?
Most days I go home stoked that I've achieved something. The to-do list never gets completed. You'll take one thing off and you'll add 5 things, just inherently. I always go down rabbit holes as well. I don't like just signing something and saying this is how it will be. I really like to know what I'm talking about when I work in a space.
How many days do you come home and you're just going, "What the hell were they thinking"?
Probably the same amount of days. Every time that I come home going, I've had a win, I've also had several losses. It's not that their loss is in the defeated, that's the final answer, but it's something hasn't been communicated or achieved, or I'm trying to help management understand what the rationale was or how we got here. And they have their agenda, and we have ours, and we try to keep them aligned, but we're also the ones enforcing it. And so we have to keep it grounded in that, I think.
How many days? That was absolutely amazing. I never knew that existed.
There's always a I never knew that existed every day as well. But it would have to be when you work with other people, when you're working with the coastal team or you're working with development planners or the EPA. We were sending algal samples off to microalgal lab who specifically work in algal identification and toxin sampling. This whole crossover of health. Had no idea it has to exist, but what a cool space to be in.
How many days have you gone home going, "That is the most boring day I've ever had"?
Probably the days you get stuck in office, but there's a lot of jelly beans and there's a lot of, good coffee around and a lot of sunshine and a lot of friendly faces. So it all balances out.
There you go. I think we've done an awesome job.
I think it's an awesome podcast. Please keep doing it. And thank you for your work in this space.
Thank you for your time today. I guess the take-home message is environmental health officers do absolutely everything. And so if you're looking at someone coming up saying, "Hey, why should I enter this?" Number one is, if you're that 6-year-old at heart who's putting something in the recycling bin and saying, "Hey, why aren't others doing it?" Well, this is the way that you educate and you help people to do that. So you don't have to write off to your local minister to say, "Hey, let's fix the world." But it's also the job where if you like fixing puzzles, if you like playing with technology or whatever, this is a puzzle solving career. But also if you are just a person who is there to try and make a difference and enforce it, then you've got that responsibility, you've got that power. You're not sitting behind a desk where you can't make a difference. And you're talking about kids who are coming out of school, then going, "Hey, we want to save the world, but we feel totally disempowered." And so you can change that. So thank you very much for your time today, and all the best with your future career. And we look forward to you becoming the health minister or something one day. And one day this video clip will come up to haunt your future career in politics.
Oh,
But until that, you're going to save the world. Thanks a lot.
thank you very much for having me, and best of luck with the rest of the podcast. I'm sure you're going to cover a lot of really interesting topics in this space. So thank you very much.